10, and we're conducting an interview for Mr. Rozell's World War II class. So,
All right.
you can sit down if you'd like.
Yes, I would. Try to push this away. Yeah, we'll tell about the light. You think you need it?
Sure, it doesn't matter. The light behind you is alright with the window.
Alright, do you mind if I ask you a couple of background questions before
No,
we
not
get
at
started?
all.
Alright, so can you tell me your date of birth?
December 3rd, 1916.
Where were you born?
I was born in Glens Falls, New York.
Did you grow up there?
I grew up there, yes.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school at South Street School. And what can I tell you? South Street School.
What did you do for a living?
What did I do for a living? Well, after I graduated, as a matter of fact, when I was 13 years old, I went to work at Erlanger's downtown, and it was very nice. I mean, I just did it to keep busy, and we didn't need any government regulations then, and I just worked there.
Did you ever have any children?
Yes, I had one child that was stillborn, and then I had my son Jeffrey, who lives in Massachusetts.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
No, they were all gone. I was the baby of 10 in the family, and my oldest sister died a year ago.
What did you do during World War II? Did you work at all?
World War II, yes. I worked at Erlanger's, and I used to manage the department, and I used to go to New York to buy. I just never went to college, and I was really, I had let's see, what was it? I was ready to go to college, only my father was ill, and it was too hard for my mother, and I didn't go. And I stayed at Erlanger's and worked.
What would you have majored in if you went to college?
I think I would have majored in the same work I was doing at Erlanger's.
Do you have any specific memories of living during the Great Depression?
During the Great Depression? Well, I tell you, I was born during the Great Depression. And I don't remember anything. I remember my mother telling me that everybody was sick, they had the flu, and it used to cost them $1 for a lemon. And of course it costs $1 for a lemon today, but in those days $1 for a lemon was a great deal.
Do you remember what it was like when Hitler came to power?
When what?
Do you remember what it was like in America when Hitler came to power?
Oh yes. Yes, it was dreadful. I mean, you know, we used to hear about it and read about it and all, but we were very concerned. And then that was it. What else could we do?
Do you think that this country should have gone to war? Do you think that we should have after Pearl Harbor, do you think we should have immediately gone into war? Do you think we should have like waited a little bit to see what would have happened? Do you think we made the right decision?
I think it was necessary to go to war. My husband immediately signed up for war, but and we were not married at the time, and he had signed up because his brother was at Guadalcanal, and his brother died there. Not died there, but he was in a foxhole with 6 other guys. And he was the only one that came out alive. And the other guys were killed. And that left a great mark on him. And then my husband decided he would go into service. And he went into the Marine Corps.
Did you approve of this decision?
Yes. In fact, he was going to California, and I said, well, I would join him there. And of course, he went right over to the islands, right over there. He had seen his brother the day before, and we went into where was it, Cape, he had seen his brother, and then his brother, of course, was in this horrible accident, and he went on to Espiritu Santos, and I knew that only because we had a code, and he had told me where he was going, and otherwise I would never have known. And I didn't hear from him for several weeks. And we were married before he went over. And I was to join him, and of course he went right over. He just didn't hang around. So that was the story.
Did any of your friends have any of their boyfriends or husbands involved in the war?
Very few of them. No, I don't think so. They were involved, but they were not sent overseas.
Where did your husband go exactly in the Pacific?
He went to the Pacific. He went to past Guadalcanal and went to Espiritu Santos. And the only reason I knew that is because we had a code. And he was able to tell me by the code where he was. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to tell me. He was gone for 4 years before I saw him again.
How often would you get letters from him?
Oh, I got letters all the time. And there was a time when I read in the paper where Espiritu Santos had been bombed. And I can remember how dreadful I felt. And I didn't hear from him for a long time. And then finally I did get a letter, and he told me that he was bombed and that he was okay.
Was he injured?
No.
Were there any serious injuries?
No, he wasn't.
Did your husband ever talk about any war experiences that he had?
No, very little about it. Very, very little. I wish I could show you some pictures. But I don't have any right now. I think my son took all the big pictures of him there, and he was in charge of the beer. He told me that he was able to give the beer to the guys. Yeah. Excuse me, I had a tooth taken care of yesterday and it's been so painful.
Well, just let me know if you want to take a break.
No, that's all right. I have some cookies if you girls would like some.
Okay.
Yeah, well, for just a minute, let me get them. Before we were married, the license had elapsed, the blood test had elapsed, and my brother knew the judge, and he got him to to fix that so that we could get married that night, and we were married that night.
Oh, that's hilarious. So, how did you meet her?
How did I meet him? Oh, I know, he was working for Cohn Brothers shoe store at the time. And I don't know, one of the fellows there I knew had invited me over that night to play poker. And I don't know, I didn't feel like going, but I said, oh well, what am I going to do? So I went, and I sat next to him. And that's how I met him. And I don't think it wasn't love at first sight or anything. In fact, it took me a long time to decide.
So you guys were dating for quite a while before you married?
No, not a long time at all. Not a long time at all, a very short time, as a matter of fact. We went out on a New Year's Eve date, I remember. I was supposed to go to Albany, and I didn't, and he had asked me out, so I said, oh, okay, I'll go. And I did, and I don't know, we got together that night, I guess.
What's your opinion on the GI Bill?
And the GI Bill. You mean what GI Bill? You mean the new health bill?
Yeah, like when veterans would come back from war and they'd have like a home and like all these
Oh, I
things.
see. Oh, that bill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's an awful lot of bills. And I don't know, I think that the government had every right to do it, and I think that they didn't do it properly. I don't think they did half of the things that they should have done. I mean, the young men were really in bad shape when they came home, and a lot of them were not physically but emotionally upset. And I don't know, my husband wasn't, and I don't know why he wasn't, because he went through so much, but he just was good. And but I guess maybe because he had somebody home waiting for him. But I honestly think it was unfair, because I think the government should have done a lot more for the fellows when they come home, and should do it.
Do you think if your son was interested in going into the war today, do you think your husband would approve of that?
I'll tell you, my son was called in, and he had fallen on a ski slope when he was 13 years old and had injured his back. So he was not, they wouldn't accept him, because he was called and he wasn't accepted. So he went off to school.
How did FDR's death affect you?
How did what?
Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the president's. How did his death affect you?
Oh, it was dreadful. I was on the golf course. I was playing with a neighbor, and we were both, I don't know, somebody came along and told us, and we were both shocked. And of course we couldn't finish playing the golf, and we were very upset.
Did your family and friends support your decision to travel with your husband, like when he was in California, and like when you, like how you would like follow him around?
No, he came back. He came back to Kinston, North Carolina, after the war, and he was still in the service. And I joined him. They were very happy that I joined him, and it was tough. It was very hard, and you know, my family approved, but we didn't have any money, and I got a job working in a shop where there were all black people working there, and it was very difficult at the time because people were against the black people. It was very difficult. And his commanding officer stopped by one night, and we had a big thing of salami that my mother had sent us because she knew we didn't have any money to buy anything. So she sent us this salami, and he came to the door, and we were eating, and I thought, oh my God, my husband was out of uniform or something. But he said he heard we had an apartment, because we looked all over until we found this apartment. And because we lived in a little room, one room, with a potbelly stove, and it was really a big home, and I just lived in this one room with a potbelly stove, and it was really bad. And I used to go down. When he'd go to work, I'd go down and have my breakfast or have my lunch or something, and start looking, and I finally found an apartment. And this particular night, this officer came to the door, and I said, oh, he's been out of uniform, or he's been something. So he said, I heard you had an apartment, and I wondered if you knew of any place. And I said, no. I said, we don't. He said, my wife is pregnant, and I want her to come down. And I said, well, you can get a room someplace. And he said, no, it would be a problem with the food. And I said, well, I invited him to eat with us, the salami, and he loved it. He stayed. And he said, well, I said, you know, she could, if you get a room for her, she can eat with us if you share the meal, you know, the food. So he said, oh, that would be wonderful. Well, he was there the next day with his wife, and he was very good to us. And and they finally said, you know, that she's trying to eat with us, and she was very lonesome. And he said, why don't you quit your job? I said, if I quit my job, we can eat. So he said, he was a sergeant, and he was he was promoted to staff sergeant. so that his wife have a place to eat. That's the truth. And he was very good to us. You know, I got sick. I remember getting sick and I didn't want to go to the base hospital, and I called the doctor in town. And he came in and he said I had some sort of an infection, a bladder infection or something. And he said, "Do you have any children?" I said, "No." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Because," I said, "the doctor told me I couldn't have any because I was built so small." He said, "Will you do me a favor?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Will you please come to my office and let me examine you?" So he said, "Oh," I said, "Well, yes." So I went to the office, and it was a big high stairs, and I remember climbing up the stairs into this little office, and he examined me and he said, "There's no way that you can't have children. Every woman can have children." And he says, "You can have children. You go home and enjoy yourself." That's exactly what he said. You girls all know about this, so I guess you're old enough. He said, when you finish having intercourse, you put the pillow between your legs and don't get up. I was pregnant within 2 months. Yeah. Yeah. So he was really something. And I had to come back home because it was too difficult there. And I came back home, but the commander used to fly Herb up to Hudson Falls on a weekend on a Friday night, and he could stay till Sunday, and he came after him. So that was nice.
Did the fact that your husband was in the Marines, did that change your perspective on war, like the concept of war?
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, before it was, something that you just went through, You listened to all of the remarks and things that people said, but it was just a phase that you went through. But then it became very important.
Where were you when the atomic bomb was dropped?
Where was I? No, I don't remember exactly where I was. I don't remember.
Do you remember, hearing anything, on the radio?
Oh, yes, I remember it very well, but I don't remember where I was. For the life of me, I can't remember. I don't know, maybe... Isn't that funny? I don't...
Was that decision, sort of kept secret to drop the atomic bomb? Did the country really know anything about it, or did they sort of keep that to themselves?
No, we knew about it. And of course everybody heard about it. And it was dreadful. And funny, I can't remember where I was. It's strange.
What do you think students should take away from World War II? What do you think that they should remember the most about it?
About the day it was over. Yes, I remember that day very well. I was at the movies, and a friend of mine screamed because her husband was in the service. And I heard her scream when they stopped the movie to tell us that it was over. Mhm.
Could you watch the movie after that? Could you watch the rest of the movie after learning that
Oh,
news?
no. We were all so excited.
That's really all the questions I have. All right.
What's that?
All right. Pearl Harbor. Do you remember where you were for that?
Oh, yes. I was at my sister's house, at my brother's house, and my sister-in-law. And I remember that distinctly. And I wasn't with my husband, but that's shortly afterwards he went in.
Did you know where Pearl Harbor was, or was that the first time that you'd ever heard of it?
Yeah, it's the first time I'd ever heard of it. Mm-hmm.
Were there a lot of like protesters to the war? Because like these days, like
Oh,
that's all
no,
you
we
see.
didn't hear that at all. I don't remember hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I just didn't listen, but because at that point it wasn't important to me. But no, I don't remember that at all.
A lot of students today, when they think about women during the war, they tend to think about factories and how they were building, you know, airplanes and materials. Like, did you know a lot of people that were involved with the factory work?
My sister was. My sister and her husband, they were in Florida, and then they had to go to Rome, New York, because he was involved in this factory work, and she became involved in it too. You know. But I was the baby of a family of 10, and this sister just died just a year ago.
Did you always ever want a big family, or
No, I mean, I lost my first child, and then I can remember with Jeffrey, they kept me, I didn't even ride in a car all the time I was pregnant with him. And it was just great. When I first rode in the car, it was when I was ready to deliver.
When did your son find out that your husband was involved in the war? Like, did he ever like ask questions?
No, I'll tell you honestly, my son knew he was involved when he was a little boy. No, wait a minute, he wasn't born then. No, he knew he was involved, but it didn't mean very much to him. Not much at all.
That's all I have.
What?
Did your husband ever tell you any stories?
No, he never told me any stories. And he had beautiful pictures, I know, that my son took home with him. And he had his medals and everything. And my son has them all. But beautiful pictures.
What medals did he win? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't, because he never spoke about it. And he was really right with it all the time. He just was very good about it.
So exactly how long was he over in the Pacific? 4 years?
He was there for 4 years.
And how long was he like in like America, but like in like the bases and stuff? Like how?
He was in the right where he was in Espiritu Santos all the time. As a matter of fact, someplace here, I have a tape. A friend of mine lived in the Pacific. I mean, this was later on, and she told me that she came over to get her mother and take her back with her. And I said, where is it? So she said, it was in Espirito Santos. And I said, oh, you're kidding. That's where my husband was. She says, well, it's become a resort town now. And she sent me a tape of it. And it was beautiful. It was a lovely resort town. And she invited us to come over to see it. But we never got there. But the tape is beautiful. It was very exciting.
How long ago was that?
Oh, golly. Don't ask me.
What was it like on the home front, like with the rations and everything? Was that hard?
With the what?
With like the rations and everything? What was it like on the home front here?
While he was there?
Yeah, and just like your experiences and...
Oh, I don't know. I worked all the time, and I remember one day I was standing by the window and I saw this Marine walk by, and I screamed, and this girl said to me, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Oh," I said, that's Irv. And she said, "My goodness, he's been gone so long you've forgotten what he looked like." And I said it was true. And oh no, we thought about it all the time. It was in our minds all the time.
So it's not like it was now. Like now, people don't really think about the war unless they have like a family member involved in it.
That's right.
So it's not like it wasn't like that back then.
No, not with me. Because I was very conscious of it. And when he came home, I wasn't sure that he was the man I was married to. It was very awkward. We went to New York on a honeymoon, and well, that was funny. We went up to the Scarron Manor, that's in Scroon Lake, and there was a friend of mine who was sitting on the porch, and she was kind of avoiding me. She was sitting with her husband. And I said, "You've met my husband, haven't you?" So she, her mouth open. And she said, "Oh, I thought you were on a weekend pass." So I said, no. And so I said we were married. So the war was very much in our minds. Someplace I have some pictures.
He proposed, or was it just a mutual thing to get married when he came home?
Oh, he came home on Saturday morning, and I was in bed with my sister when he walked in, and he came home. He was on the plane with Jack Benny, and he said, "Oh, I bet you're going to be married." And he said, "Oh, no, I'm not." Well, he walked in the bedroom, and he said, "Well, what do you say? We get married tonight." So I said, "Great." So my father knew the judge, and the judge did all the paperwork because our blood test had expired. And that was it. That's how we got married.
Pays to have connections.
Yeah. Yes, it was. It was great. You're not going to finish that one cookie.
I think it's Maddie's. But I have a question too. What did you do to take your mind off of the war? Did you, you said you golfed, did you do anything else?
What did I do to get my mind off the war?
And other people in the area.
My mind was never off the war. I used to, go to a girl's house, or we used to get together and we'd play cards or try to do something once a couple of nights a week. And the rest of the time we were at home. I lived with my parents, with my mother and my sister. And that was it. It wasn't very pleasant. So that's it.
Yeah, I think that's all we have.
Okay.
Good. Okay. 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 This is the last one.